Hey, people. My name is Dana, and I'm 16. I'm telling you this story so that you don't repeat my mistakes. Never hide anything, and always tell the truth. Here's a short list of how my deal with my conscience ended. I lost my brother, my dad left us, and my teacher wants to sue me. But let's start from the beginning. It all started when I caught my mom with her lover. I had a math tutor, Mr. Dean, and I noticed that my mom really enjoyed talking to him after my sessions. She was always nice to him and offered him tea and cookies. To be honest, I was a little annoyed because I didn't like Mr. Dean and I thought he was so boring. Plus, Mom's flirting with him wasn't fair since she was a married woman. My dad was a sailor, and he spent most of the year in faraway countries delivering cargo all over the world. I guess my mom was missing a man's presence, and she was having fun flirting with my tutor. One day, I decided to catch her in the act. After tutoring, I said I had to run to see my friend, and I left the house, leaving my mom and Mr. Dean alone. I was hoping they would want to take advantage of the situation, and then I would suddenly return. So 30 minutes later, I came home and I saw that Mr. Dean's car was still parked in front of our house. Then I quietly went into the house, went into my parents' bedroom, turned on the camera on my phone, and abruptly burst into the room to catch them. I saw exactly what I had expected to see. Mom and Mr. Dean were kissing, and I caught them by surprise. I got what I wanted and calmly went downstairs, waiting for an explanation. After a few minutes, my mom came down and begged me not to tell my dad everything. I wasn't going to agree, and I refused to play along with my mom. But then she started crying, and I felt sorry for her. She told me how she felt every time my father left for work. Mom had tried to persuade my dad to find another job for a long time because she missed him so much. But he always refused, and my mother was offended. She cheated on him for the first time in her life and vowed to never do it again. At that moment, I thought I understood her. I missed the attention from my father, too, so I agreed to keep her secret. That same day, my mom cut all ties with my tutor. It turned out that she did it just in time because a week later, Dad surprised us and came home on a break. To be honest, at first it was very awkward. My mom and I were now keeping a big secret, and we put a lot of effort into pretending that nothing had happened. And soon life went back to its normal pace, but all of the problems were just beginning. The fact is that after a month of Dad's vacation, Mom stunned us with the news that she was pregnant. It was, oh my God, information. She had already been to the doctor, and he confirmed it. She was in the first month of pregnancy. Dad was overjoyed, and he and Mom were just so happy. I was happy too, but when I remembered that she'd had an affair with Mr. Dean a month ago, all my happiness was gone. I thought my tutor was the father of the child, and that changed everything. I decided to talk to my mom about it because I thought it had become more than just a little secret, and something had to be done about it. But she told me to keep quiet because I would just destroy our family, and we couldn't predict what would happen next. So the decision was made, and we began to prepare for a big change in our lives. First, my dad finally decided to change his job so he could stay at home and give his family more time. Plus, he was supposed to be helping his pregnant wife. This had a very positive impact on our family relationships. Dad had started giving Mom and me the attention we needed. Mom had forgotten the secret she was hiding, or maybe it was the hormones that changed her mood, but she was just happy, and she shined like the sun on a clear day. But I was beginning to feel uncomfortable about everything that was going on. The fact is, even though my father had made a lot of money in the last few months while he was on the ship, my parents understood that they had to spend it carefully because they were going to have to spend a lot of money on the new baby. So I had restrictions on my pocket money. I could have easily gotten over it, but it just wasn't the right moment. My class was going on a road trip, and I had dreamed of this opportunity to spend time with my friends, but now my parents couldn't give me the money for it, so I couldn't go. I was already upset, but suddenly I had an idea. All I had to do was call Mr. Dean. I was going to blackmail him. I had pictures of him with my mom, and I could use them to make him to give me money. To do that, I had to scare him a lot. And unlike math, I did this perfectly. When we met, I immediately took a position of strength and said that my mom was pregnant and that I had photos that proved the connection between him and my mom. Then I threatened to publish the pictures and tell my father everything. I gave him a great scenario of him being stripped of his teacher's license for immoral behavior and then having my father come after him. I said that he was a sailor and that he had very strong hands, if you know what I mean. Mr. Dean could not stand the pressure, and he agreed to pay me money to keep quiet. The bargain had been completed, and I was pleased that I was able to earn the money for my trip. It was my dream, and I was able to turn it into reality. It's been a long time since then. I won't tell you about the trip. All you need to know is that it was just awesome. Time flew by pretty quickly, and my mother gave birth to a boy. Honestly, I cried like a little girl when I held him in my arms. Maybe I had some maternal instinct in me, but this baby was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I was just so happy to help my parents take care of him, but my happiness didn't last long. Soon, Mr. Dean suddenly appeared on our doorstep. Somehow, he found out that Mom had had the baby, and he couldn't get over his feelings. He didn't care what my father might do to him, or that he might lose his teaching license. He wanted partial custody of this child. This demand came out of the blue. In fear, I looked at my father and saw how he was processing this information. He asked my mother if this was true. She had no place to go, so she told the truth. Then there was a fight in which everyone was shouting at my mother. Dad was furious that she had cheated on him and lied about it for so long. And he didn't expect that from me. His own daughter had lied to him and covered up her mother's infidelity. I guess I had become the enemy too. Mr. Dean was screaming that he wanted the baby for himself. At this point, my mom just stood there and cried. Thank God Dad calmed down after a while and just laughed. Mom was not going to give up the child, so my tutor left too, but he promised that he would deal with everything through the courts. Then my mother and I were left alone. We both sat in silence and had time to reflect on our lies. But the story isn't over yet. We soon found out that my father wanted to divorce my mom and that they were doing paperwork. At the same time, Mr. Dean attacked my mom with a paternity suit. And while all this was happening, me and my mom had to take care of the baby. He cried a lot and slept poorly too, but it was not because of an upset stomach. It was because we were being tormented by our conscience for what we had done. This baby was all we had left, and it broke my heart to think of giving him away. Imagine our emotions when the DNA paternity test came in the mail. We opened the envelope with the terrible anxiety in our hearts. But at the end of the letter, the conclusion was that Mr. Dean was not the father of the child. That meant he could go to hell with his claims. For the first time in weeks, my mother and I were relieved. We even had hopes that everything would end well. But we were wrong again. When we told Dad that he was actually the father of the child, he was very happy. But he still didn't want to forgive my mom. He couldn't forget about her cheating, and he couldn't forgive me for covering for her all this time. Yes, it was a real betrayal because Dad was making money for both of us, and we treated him so badly. So Dad wanted to burn all the bridges between us. And more than that, he wanted to take the baby for himself. My mother had no choice. She had to give in to Dad, and they made a deal. Mom would be able to visit the baby regularly, but it didn't make it any easier. At the same time, Mr. Dean didn't want to leave me alone. He thought I knew that he wasn't the father of the baby in the first place, and I lied to him when I extorted money in exchange for compromising photos. So now he's threatening to sue me. Now I have no idea what our future will be like. Where will we get money to live? Will I be able to reconnect with my father? Will I be able to see my baby brother? And all these problems are the result of the deal we made with our conscience. So I decided for myself, once and for all, that it is better to tell the truth, even if it hurts, than to lie to a loved one until the moment when the lie becomes explosive. My mother and I suffered from this kind of explosion, and it is entirely our fault. This is the end of my story. Thank you for your attention. Tell me about your compromises with your conscience in the comments, and don't forget to share this